Let's get reaction from across the border in South Africa, where hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans have fled. Mike Hanna joins us live from Johannesburg. Mike, how is this playing out over there?
Well, while the African leaders sit around and talk and try and decide what to do next, while leaders even further afield do the same, this is a daily reality of life for many Zimbabweans. I'm in a church in the center of Johannesburg, and this is a shelter for hundreds of Zimbabwean refugees who fled the violence in that country, and others who've also subsequently fled what has been political violence or xenophobic violence here in South Africa. Now, there are at the moment over 2,000 people living here. They leave here at the beginning of the day and they come back after they've found their work or been looking for work at the end of the day. People will be sleeping in a matter of hours on these stairs. They will be sleeping in all these areas around here, using whatever they can to keep themselves warm. And this, one must remember, is the middle of winter in Johannesburg. So this is absolute evidence that what happens within Zimbabwe has an impact far beyond the country's borders. Many of those who've come here are well qualified. Many of them had good jobs back in Zimbabwe. Now, one of them I will introduce you to is Morgan Tsvangirai, who is actually a former lieutenant in the Zimbabwean army, and you came here 2 days ago. Why did you leave Zimbabwe?
The reason why I left Zimbabwe is that, the political situation there is not conducive, especially like some of us who are in the army, if the situation is like that, then we no longer feel safe, especially for some of us who were in the army before.
Now, the MDC leader has held a news conference today asking for the United Nations, the African Union to get involved, asking them to take over or oversee some kind of transitional arrangement. Do you think there's any possibility that the country can get to a point where such a transitional arrangement would be put in place? Is Robert Mugabe ever going to be prepared to do any form of negotiation?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't think the President of Zimbabwe, Comrade Robert Mugabe, will be prepared to do that. As you have heard him on so many occasions, interviews, he'll be saying, especially when he's holding his rallies, he's saying he's not prepared to step down if they are to vote him Tsvangirai by paper. He's saying no, they should hold guns. That is, if you beat him with the guns, then you will step down. So I don't think there will be anything which is going to come up there.
Now, you were in the army. You are opposed to Robert Mugabe, and that's why you've had to flee Zimbabwe. Are there many others like you in the army, which has been a very strong pillar of support for Robert Mugabe?
Yeah, there are so many guys like us, but me, of course, I was discharged from the army, but there are so many guys who are fleeing from the army because of that political situation there. Because this thing, when you are in the army, they just want you to follow what they really want you to do there. So many people cannot stand that. That's why they are running away from the army.
Morgan Tsvangirai, thank you very much for talking to us. And I'd like now to speak to Bishop Paul Verreyn. Bishop, you have got over 2,000 people here at the moment. What is the mood? One of despair? How are the people here feeling, particularly with events that have been happening in Zimbabwe?
I think that the mood is a wait-and-see thing at the moment, I think there are people who are very angry because I think there are many people over here, certainly, who think that the time has come for change in Zimbabwe, and they feel tricked and foiled. And I think when their situation is minimized, there is a deep sense of disrespect of them and a worry, that this thing is never, ever going to transform itself.
Now, you were a prominent figure in the struggle against apartheid for a long period of time. You fought then against the repression of the people. Did you think you would be seeing what appears to be the repression of the people once again in an independent Southern African state?
Independence is never a guarantee. Freedom from the ability to oppress is never a guarantee. And all of us constantly have to watch ideologies and have to watch systems that as they grow stronger and stronger can eventually become a dampen on the voice of freedom and can ultimately destroy people and justify that they're destroying people because they think that they have the democratic will of the people in mind. And there is no amount of manipulation that can go on to do that. I want to remind you that in those bad years, they called themselves a democratic country. Democratic for whites, of course, but and that was a minority actually didn't matter. But and the Afrikaner system saw itself as a liberation from the British system. So we constantly, having one freedom, have to work very hard at keeping all the doors open all the time.
Bishop Verreyn, thank you very much indeed. The sun setting here in Johannesburg, hundreds of refugees returning to sleep here for the night. When the sun rises the next morning, not much more hope that they will be able to return home soon.